Hello and welcome back to Market Shares. I'm your host, Tony Blodgett. And today what I thought I would talk about is just some things that I've learned, some tips around productivity. I get asked this all the time. How do I keep my day on track? How do I get through all the things that I have come across my plate? And most of you, that watch this podcast, I'm assuming know me, kind of know what I do for a living. But just to give you a little kind of glimpse at the things that I'm involved with, I work at a mortgage company at the executive level. So I do a lot of meetings and tasks that are, for things all across the country, for the whole sales division. And so as you can imagine, with a company our size, that alone takes up a lot of time. But I also run a region here in the Pacific Northwest. I oversee a division that has multiple regions under that. So not just my region here in the Northwest. There's another region here in the Northwest that I oversee that's ran by a regional, and then also a region in the Midwest that's almost as big, if not in some ways larger than the region here in the Pacific Northwest. So I have a couple loan officers and branch managers reporting directly to me, regionals reporting to me. And then, like I said, a lot of work at the corporate level as well, whether that be on strategies around, pricing and kind of what we're doing there. I'm involved in, mergers, acquisitions, and just, overall decision-making at a corporate level. So there's a lot of meetings that come with that part of the job. And so, with all those things happening, and on top of that, I have some other, business stuff that I do on the side. I'm going to talk a little bit about that and where that fits in. I also am a husband and father with 3 children. And, once in a while, I like to have a life as well. So how do you fit all of that stuff, into your day? And I'm not going to sit here and say that it's easy. I'm not even going to say that I'm great at it. I think given the amount of things that I do in any given day, there's definitely some tricks that I've learned that even if you don't have as demanding of a schedule as I might, I think there's some things that you could probably take away from these best practices that would help you in your business. And what I've found, and what I found early on in my career, is that, in times like this, when I'm in a role with all the responsibilities I have no choice but to be super organized with my time, find ways of following up on the things that need followed up on, not dropping the ball, not, I don't have the option to not get back to people who have very important questions that need my input. But here's the thing is, even if you're in a spot where you're not that busy, the reality is putting this sort of structure into your life can be very helpful, because there's probably things that you should be spending your time doing that are very high, income producing activities or prospecting or things that you should be doing, but you're letting the mundane things kind of creep in and fill your time. And so I would argue that even if you don't have the same demands on your time that I do, for instance, you should put some structure in place to free up the time in your schedule to do the things that need to get done in order to accomplish the goals that you've set for yourself and for your family. So hopefully this helps you do that, even if you're like, I'm not nearly that busy. I've intentionally, set things up to where it's not that chaotic. Well, there's probably some time in your schedule that should be set aside to do things you need to do. Maybe this will help. So I'm just going to go through a couple of these in a few different categories, and I hope that this resonates. I hope you take something away from, this little talk here. The first thing I'm going to say is that it's really important that we don't try to hold things in our mind all the time. I mean, even, I think we all think we're really smart, we're great multitaskers, all this stuff. But the reality is that trying to hold on to things in your brain is it's not healthy for you to do, and it's quite distracting actually from other areas of your life. Because what we do is we create these open loops. We tell someone, hey, I'm going to get back to you on that, or hey, I'll give you a call about that tomorrow. every time we do that, we create this, we cast out this arc, if you will, that really needs to be a completed loop. And as long as we have these arcs out there that aren't completed loops, they are pulling away your mental energy, whether you realize it or not. So one of the things that you can do to help with that is just simply brain dump at the end of the day all the things that you need to do the next day. So a lot of people like to get up in the morning and make a to-do list. And this is very similar to that. I would just argue you should do it the night before. That way you can go home and you can enjoy your family and do whatever you need to do in the evening and not be having these open loops trying to remind yourself to do something that's not even going to happen until tomorrow. So my first tip for you is make a to-do list the night before. If you work in an office all day and you're getting ready to leave for the day, just jot out everything that you remember right off the top of your head that you need to do the next day. So at least you have those things out and you don't have these open loops running in the background. It's kind of like having apps open on your phone that aren't doing anything. They're definitely taking your battery and your memory life, right? So get those things out of your head and get them onto a piece of paper. The other thing that I would encourage you to do, whether this be something you maybe make a list in your phone, but things are going to pop up randomly. Our brains are crazy like this, right? Sometimes we cast these open loops and they just come back to us at random times. Like, oh man, I was supposed to do that thing. You might want to consider adding in the notes section of your phone an area where you can just, when that idea pops in really quick, just jot it down, and then boom, it's off your subconscious. It's not going to come attack you at some weird time, reminding you need to do something. So capture that, and then when you get to your office or wherever you're doing business the next day, add it to your to-do list so that it's out of your brain and it's on paper. This sounds really basic, you guys, but the reality is most people don't do these sorts of practices. And as a result, they're either constantly forgetting to do things or they actually have these things coming up at random times when they didn't want to be thinking about them, need to be thinking about something else. And they actually create quite a bit of stress in your life, believe it or not. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing I would say about your to-do list, the one you make the night before, you guys, it's really important that you focus on getting through your main list of topics before noon. Nothing really good happens after noon, in my opinion. That's a great time to have meetings and maybe things of that nature. But as far as tackling the important things that need to get done, it's not going to happen before noon. And a lot of people are pretty checked out. They don't answer their phones as often in the afternoon, so on and so forth, right? You've had lunch, you might be tired, whatever the case may be. So really try to get through your big tasks early in the day, get them done before noon. Again, not rocket science, but I promise you it's a best practice most people don't instill, especially those of us in the mortgage and real estate. We tend to kind of be procrastinators by nature. And so these things we get pushed off into the afternoon, then they don't ever get done, then they become open loops, and you can see how the cycle continues. So those are a couple things there. Now, this next topic I want to talk about, I want to actually recommend a book because I'm going to give you kind of the Reader's Digest version of some best practices. But if you really want to get good at this stuff, I read a book years ago by a guy named David Allen, and it's called Getting Things Done. And one of the biggest takeaways that I had from that book is what I'm going to talk about next. But I would encourage you to go read that book, get the audio book if you're like me, you prefer audiobooks, or just read the book. Because if you need more organization in your life, which I promise you do, even if you don't think you do, you probably could use more organization. David Allen, Getting Things Done is an awesome book. But one of the concepts that he talks about in there is it's called Do It, Delegate It, or Delete It. And let me just talk through this with you really quick. The first one is just do it. And what David says is that if there's something that needs to get done and you could do it in 2 minutes, you should just stop what you're doing right then and do it, right? So this was profound for me. There's many times that, I need the batteries charged, maybe the battery's out in some electronic device or, some other little task that I noticed needs to get done. And I'm like, oh, I'll get that done over the weekend, when I have plenty of time on my hands. But what I found myself doing once I read this book was I just do those things. I see them, I do them, they're out of the way, and I can move on and clear my conscience and checked off. It never even made it to a list. It's just checked off and moved on. So do it is the first thing. If you can do it in 2 minutes, just do it now. The second thing is delegate it. So if you can't do it right now, then you got to do something else with it, right? You either got to delegate it or you got to delete it, right? Which is the last thing. So do it, delegate, delete. So when it comes to delegating, to me, there's 2 ways that you can do this. The first thing is just simply delegate it to another individual, right? Someone else who's going to then take on that task for you. So some people have a team of people. Some people have an assistant. If you have those things, awesome. That's great. That's super helpful. If you don't, then you need to delegate it to yourself. Well, how do you do that? Well, you have to create a system to then capture those things, like an inbox of things that you need to get done. So really what you're just doing is you're delegating it to a later date. You may be the person still responsible for it. If you don't have someone else you can delegate it to, but you need a system, an inbox system to be able to capture those things. Maybe that's something you put on your to-do list the next day. And then the last one is delete it. Look, there's a reality is there's a lot of things that we commit to doing that we have zero intention on doing. So the first thing is be mindful of telling someone you're going to do something when you know you're not going to do it, because you're just creating an open loop that's never going to get closed, and that's not helpful. Or other things you may have committed to because at the time you thought you could do it, but you're not going to be able to get around to it. So you just need to let that person know, or just simply delete it off of your to-do list and quit kidding yourself that it's something you're going to follow up with. So try to remember those things. Do it, delegate it, or delete it. Create an inbox system for capturing the things that you don't have the ability to delegate to somebody else. Now, one other note here on delegating, and this is really important to remember, is that even when you delegate something, it doesn't mean that you get to delegate responsibility, right? So if something is your responsibility to get done, and then you delegate that task to somebody else, yeah, you've delegated the task, but you have not delegated the responsibility that it gets done. So you also then have to follow up on things that you delegate to make sure they ultimately got done. Now, maybe the person that you're delegating to, you trust emphatically. I have an amazing assistant. I trust that everything that I delegate to her is going to get done. And, 99% of it does. But often I will check in and I will follow up and make sure. And I also will take responsibility. If it doesn't get done, my fault for not following up, not her fault for not doing her job. Now, maybe she constantly doesn't do her job, not my assistant, but let's hypothetically say, well, then you have another issue there to deal with. But I just want to point that out, that people confuse the fact that once you delegate something, you're still responsible if it was your item to begin with. So you got to follow up on the things that you delegate. That's critical. Now, let's shift gears a little bit. Let's talk about your calendar. Now, for someone like me, I don't even manage my calendar anymore. My assistant manages my calendar for the most part. So when people need meetings set up or whatnot, they're usually going through her to schedule that. And, that's been like that for me for a long time. But it's something you have to set up intentionally. So if you're on a team and you're not great at managing your time, you might want to seriously consider delegating your calendar to somebody else. It sounds very scary, and it certainly can be at times, but you can set ground rules around that. You can set expectations on what you want your calendar to look like. And then if you don't have the ability to delegate that to somebody, then you know what? Now it's your responsibility. And I do think it's highly important for people to have a calendar that they stick to. I've done a lot of coaching of loan officers in the past, and oftentimes I'll ask them to pull out their calendar and show me what's on their calendar. And usually what I'll see is a week at a glance with a few little things filled in here or there, and they may or may not stick to that schedule when the time comes, right? That's what a lot of people's calendar looks like. And I would argue that that is no way to be highly productive in the mortgage and real estate space, or really any business, but most of you watching this are probably in mortgage and real estate. So I do think that it's really important that you schedule out your week. So you should be able to sit down on Sunday night, as I do, and I look at my week at a glance, and I know exactly kind of what the flow of my week is going to look like. If there's any travel going on, what days do I have to be in the office? What days am I maybe working from home? Is there other things going on? Is there personal time that's scheduled in there? I want to kind of get that in my mind, before the week starts. So I always review my calendar on Sunday night, get a good feel for what the week looks like. If you get to Sunday night and you open up your calendar and it's just a blank canvas, I promise you your level of productivity that next week is not going to be amazing. So what I would encourage you to do, if that's you, is start filling in that calendar with the things that you know you should be doing. So if you're in sales, well, we know we need to be prospecting. So block out the time that you're going to be using for prospecting. If you know there's certain times of the week when you prefer to meet with clients, even if you don't have client meetings, block out that time for client meetings. If you get to that block and you don't have a client to meet with, well, guess what? Now you have extra time for prospecting, because that's what you should be doing when you don't have clients. But whatever it is for you, go through your calendar and make sure that it's completed. Now, let's talk about what completed means, because what you don't want to do is book out your calendar from 8 o'clock to 5 o'clock all day, every day, with no white space. So white space is the time in between meetings. So if you're looking at a calendar and you might have color-coded, meetings on there, all the gaps in between, that's what I call white space. And it's really important that you have white space in your calendar. And people tend to forget about this. Matter of fact, when I, am working with my assistant on how my calendar is coming together, I am reminding her often that I need white space throughout the day, because we all know things happen. You get phone calls, you get emails, you get text messages. There's other things that you might need to fit in. And if you've booked yourself back to back, then what you're going to do is you're going to find excuses not to stick to the meetings that you've put on your calendar, because you're going to fill that time with checking emails or calling people back, so on and so forth. So you got to leave the time in your calendar, either schedule it or leave white time in order to get those other tasks done that come in throughout the week. So it's really important you leave some gaps for yourself. We call it white time, so make sure you do that. And then lastly, I would also say it's important that you book anything that is family time on your calendar as well. Oftentimes there's things that come up where, I don't know, maybe I got to go with one of my kids or my wife to a doctor's appointment. I'm going to block that out. I have to drop the car off for an oil change. That tends to be my responsibility in our family. So sometimes that happens during the work week. So I'm going to block that out. Sometimes I need to get off early because, we're doing date night on a Friday, or whatever those things are. It's really important that you schedule those things, especially if you've delegated responsibility to managing your schedule to somebody else. Well, your time's got to come first. So make sure that you're blocking that out. It also gives you the ability to look back and say, am I spending an absorbent amount of time doing my own personal stuff during the work week? That might have some impact on your productivity. So, writing those things down and looking at how you're spending your time can be super, super helpful. The last thing I would say is stick to your calendar. Put things on your calendar that you're actually going to do, and then do them. I think that it's really important. With my schedule, I don't have the luxury of blowing off most of the appointments that are on my calendar. Someone reached out and scheduled those, so I'm kind of forced to do it. But even if you're not forced to do it, I would encourage you to build a calendar that you can stick to. And the reason why that's important is because it's going to, over time, build integrity in your schedule. It's going to say, look, when I schedule something, I show up for it and I complete that task, or I do that thing, or whatever I've committed to. And then as you get busier, because you've been following a schedule, those meetings become more and more important. And now you have the practice built in of showing up on time, showing up ready for whatever it is you've scheduled yourself for. So look, if you're not using a calendar at all and you got that blank canvas every Sunday night when you look at your week at a glance, you're going to at first feel like kind of an imposter. You're just going to fill in blanks of time. And at first you're going to say, I just added that on there Sunday because this podcast guy I was listening to said I should, and you're not going to take it seriously. But I encourage you to take it seriously and put things on there that you're actually going to do, and you're going to commit the time to doing them. Okay, next, let's talk about email a little bit. It is the bane of my existence. I'm sure if you're like me, probably is too. I will say, I have delegated my email to my assistant as well. Most people, that freaks them out. For me, it was the best thing that I ever did. Not the best thing, but it's one of the best things I've ever done is delegate, managing my inbox to my assistant. And so we have a very slick system where, she reads every email that comes in, so people know, and you got to let people know, like, hey, don't email me if you don't want my assistant to read it, because not only does she get all my email, she's going to see what's going on there. And, that comes with setting some expectation for people. But what's nice is she can go through and, first of all, when she first took over my inbox, it was setting up all the rules, right? I never took the time to set up the rules in my inbox, something you should consider. If you have certain emails that come in every day, you need to set up rules so that you don't necessarily see those in your inbox. Maybe they go into a specific folder. I'd be careful. Some people set too many rules, and then there's important things that you should at least be putting your eyeballs on every day, and then you want to move them. I leave those things in my inbox just because I want to see them. Even if it's a quick glance, I don't want them to automatically get filed away. But for things that can be filed away that just need to be there for reference, make sure you set the rules. And then we have a system where we flag all the important emails. I flag them or she flags them. So if I'm going through my inbox, maybe I just have a quick break in between meetings. I go through anything, any emails that I have time to read that I know need followed up. I flag them. In most cases, what I'm doing actually is I'm going into my inbox and I'm just looking for flagged emails. I don't have time to read every email that came across. So hopefully, it was flagged, and then I go through and I worked on my flagged emails. Now, we even have another redundancy to that, which is where my assistant will text me if there's flagged emails that have been sitting for too long and I haven't got to them. She'll be like, hey, you have some flagged emails, carve out some time, or hey, you have some time here to get that done. Sometimes she'll even add, if there's white space on my calendar, she'll fill that in and say, go check your flagged emails to make sure those things get caught. So as you can see, we're just constantly building redundancies to make sure the important things get put in front of me. And look, if you don't have an assistant, you can still do these same things. You're just creating, opportunities for you to spend the time doing the things you need to do during the times that you have available to do it, and you can intentionally set those up. So that's what I do with email. Now, there are some things you can also do if you don't have an assistant, right? So there is an app. It's called SaneBox, and I would highly encourage you to check out SaneBox, SANEBOX. This can be used for all email service providers, and it will do a lot of the cleanup of your email for you. So it's almost like having a virtual assistant working your inbox and getting rid of junk mail and things like that just clutter up your mind space. There's another one called Unenroll or CleanFox. These are apps that you can download that will also help you clean up your inbox. SaneMail is definitely by far, I think, the best one, but there are other technology tools that can help you organize and clean up your inbox. I already mentioned the flags. I highly encourage you to use flags. A lot of people like to just use the unread, like, show it as an unread email. That does not work for me. I need red flags that I can go through and check off those flags as I go. So consider using something like that. And then when you get in your inbox, just make sure, whether you're on your iPhone or mobile device or in Outlook, there's ways of sorting your email so that all your red flags show up on the top of your inbox and you're getting the most important things done in time. Okay, a couple other productivity hacks that I would recommend. One of them is I use voice text all the time. So, I can type pretty good, but what I've found is that I can voice text a lot quicker. And this is, it's frustrating when you first start using voice to text. It's one thing if, Siri on an iPhone, not great. I'm hoping that gets better with some of the new AI technology that Apple's rolling out. But even on my Outlook, on my regular computer, Word documents, any of those, I use voice text now instead of typing, and it creates a lot of efficiency for me. Oftentimes, if I have a long email to write, I will just voice text, and then you can either copy that into like a chat GPT and it'll clean it all up for you, right? Because you're bound to make some punctuation errors, some, words that aren't spoken correctly or translated correctly. So you can use like a chat GPT to kind of clean up your email. Or oftentimes I'll just do a voice to text. I'll just send it to my assistant, have her go through, proofread it, format it, make sure it looks right, and then, send that email on my behalf. So it's kind of a hack that I have to cut out some time. And I can do it on my phone. I can just go into my text messages. I can rattle off a really important email, voice text, but I don't have time to edit it, while I'm driving or whatever the case may be, make sure it's perfect. I can send that off to my assistant. She can send it on my behalf. She can send it right out of my inbox as if it's from me. And it is from me. It just saves me some time of having to put that on a list to do later. So consider using voice to text, and you're going to find if you haven't been using it, you're going to have to be very, you need to speak with a lot of enunciation. There's a certain cadence to your speech that tends to be recognized a lot easier by those technologies. And it might sound funny, but I'm telling you, it's definitely worth it, something to consider if you're not already. I know this isn't revolutionary stuff, but again, it's things that I don't see a lot of people using that could definitely benefit from a few of these ideas. The last thing I want to talk about, not the last thing, but one of the last things is your side hustle. So not everyone has a side hustle. I do. I've talked about it. People know I have an off-road shop. I do some investing and hard money lending and some other things outside of my day job. And here's the one thing. Here's just what I want to say about a side hustle is it's just that the time to work on your side hustle is evenings and weekends. I do not do any work on any businesses or anything else that I'm involved with during the work week. Well, A, I don't have time, but B, it's intended, they're not intended to be that. If I wanted to work 2 jobs, that would be a different thing. I don't. I work 1 full-time job, and I have some other things that I'm involved in. And so, unfortunately, if you're going to do that, that's fine, but that's usually after dinner. I go back in my office and I might spend a few hours, on other, ventures, other businesses, other things that I'm involved with. That's typically when I'm going to do those things. And yeah, that's a lot. It adds to my time. It adds to my, commitment, if you will. But in my opinion, that's when that time is best spent. If you can't do that, then, you probably need to be more focused on just doing the one thing, doing the one job, do it really well. But anyway, I just want to mention that because I get asked when people know that I'm involved in other businesses, they're like, how do you have time for that? I'm like, well, it's outside of the time. It's in the evenings. It's, I might get done at 9, 10 o'clock at night. That's a choice that I have because of, the things that I want to get accomplished. So I'm just going to throw that out there. Don't try to work a side hustle during your normal business hours. It's not fair to your employer, first of all, and it's not fair to getting the job done that you're trying to accomplish. Even if you're in mortgage and real estate, yeah, we have flexibility in our schedule. But if you're doing this job right, it's a full-time job. Okay, I promise you that. I've been doing it for 26 years, and it's never not been a full-time job. The last thing that I will talk about is, okay, Tony, so you're super busy. Sometimes you work till 10 o'clock at night. Where's the work-life balance in that, man? Like, how does that work out? And I just want to say that, I've always felt like work-life balance it's kind of a cliche thing. It's not real. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't have, fun with my family or in my life, because I absolutely do. But the way that I do that is it's incorporated together. To me, what I do for a living, especially in this mortgage and real estate space, for me, it's a lifestyle, it always has been. Yeah, I've been doing this since I was 19, 20 years old. And, I would go out and, I'd do things with my friends or whatever I was doing as a young 20-year-old. But I always answered my phone, and I always was willing to take phone calls or call clients during those times. I'd step out from a party or an event that I was at and make a phone call and make a connection and do some business and then go back in. So you got to kind of fit that in the very best that you can. I think that to the extent that you can, take some time where you wouldn't answer the phone, like, I don't know, during dinner with your family. But I still do, I'm not going to lie to you. There's times where I've been waiting for a call all day and it comes at 6 o'clock in the evening and I got to step away from the table and take that call. And, I'm okay with it. My family's okay with it. I'm sure they don't love it, but they understand that this is the type of work that I've chosen. And I don't work at an office job. I'm not sitting at a desk 9 to 5. I have the kind of work where I am of service to a lot of salespeople. I don't work with clients as much anymore, but when you do, you're of service to those clients, and they have needs that don't always fit in to a box. They don't fit right into your normal schedule. So there has to be a willingness, in my opinion, to say, look, there's enough benefits that come from this job, from this lifestyle, from this, the career, the career that we chose, that we got to take the good with the bad. And so instead of work-life, because when I hear work-life balance, I mean, there's a certain amount of time that I'm working and a certain amount of time that I'm not working. Good luck with that. I mean, if you can make it work, good on you. I have not found the ability to do that. But I do take a lot of vacations where I'm able to take a great vacation in places that maybe a lot of people, couldn't go. And so what? I got to take a few phone calls or take a meeting here or there. To me, not the end of the world. I still get to go do the vacations, go do the fun things that I want to do. And yeah, once in a while, I got to take some work calls in the meantime. Yeah, no big deal to me. So I just wanted to mention that because I get asked that question a lot as well. And people that know me know that, I got plenty of fun. I got hobbies. I got Jeeps. We in the summer, we like to go out on the boat. We definitely take vacations here and there. We have our hobby farm. There's lots of things that we're involved with as a family that aren't work. But oftentimes, work creeps in, and you know what? I'm okay with that. My family's okay with that. And hopefully you can find that sort of balance for yourself and for your family, and that there's an understanding and it works for you guys. So anyways, that is my talk for today. I hope that was helpful. I'm going to just remind you, David Allen, Getting Things Done. Awesome book that I highly recommend. And you're going to learn something from that book, whether you're, finding yourself just maxed out for time right now, or you just want to be a little more structured in the way you go about organizing your life and your day, knowing that you have, places of success that you want to aspire to over time. Having a foundation based off of what David Allen teaches in that book is definitely going to benefit you. So I hope you got something out of this episode. If you did, please subscribe if you haven't already to this podcast. That definitely helps us out. More than that, I would appreciate you telling somebody about Market Shares. We drop a new episode every single Friday. We value you guys watching, but also telling others that we're here, because trying to get through to people in this world of social media is not easy. And I feel like some of the messages we have will resonate with people in the mortgage and real estate space, and hopefully others as well. So with that, you guys, thanks for your time and attention, and we'll see you next time on Market Shares.